On the day my husband achieved fame and success, news of his death arrived, but I had already learned through a secret letter that he faked his death to elope with his white moonlight, trying to outsource filial piety, transfer responsibilities, and make me take care of this houseful of elderly, weak, sick, and disabled in the general's manor. No way in hell. That very night, I had all my dowry moved out and jumped into the river to die a martyr's death. When the military report of Pei Yuan Shan's death in battle arrived, the entire general's manor wept together. I sat upright in the main hall, holding a cup of Junshan silver needle tea, calmly looking at the messenger kneeling before me. Understood. Go collect your reward. The hall fell silent instantly. My mother-in-law, old Madame Chen, rushed in with tears streaming down her face, pointing at me with a trembling hand. Lin Yao Yao, your husband died for his country, and you show not a trace of grief. I stood up and bowed. Please calm down, mother. If your daughter-in-law also loses her composure, who will take care of this manor full of elderly and weak? The old madam choked on her words, and everyone's eyes focused on me. They expected me, a merchant's daughter, to continue using my dowry to maintain the general's manor's dignity. But 3 days ago, my father's secret letter had arrived. Pei Yuan Shan wasn't dead. He had taken the minister's daughter, Shi Qingzhou, to live in seclusion in a Jiangnan town, retiring after his success, living happily ever after together. What a fine scheme of outsourcing filial piety and transferring responsibilities. I remained composed and had the servants set up the mourning hall. The fine ebony coffin was heavy, resting in the main hall, completely empty inside, with only a few old clothes and hat that Pei Yuan Shan usually wore. The old madam insisted on holding the funeral with the highest standards, saying she couldn't let her son depart in such bleakness. White funeral banners hung all over the corridors, paper money fluttered about incense, and candles burned day and night without cease. The entire general's manor shrouded in a hollow grief, amidst the hall full of weeping and the suffocating incense smoke. My thoughts were dragged back to 3 years ago, the day Pei Yuan Shan set off for war. It was also in this main hall, clad in silver armor, in front of the whole family. He took my hand, his eyes filled with just the right amount of deep affection and remorse. Yao Yao. This journey to the border, the dangers are unknown. My elderly mother in the manor is frail, my younger brother is unruly, and all those distant relatives who came seeking refuge, all need looking after. I am entrusting everything to you. When I return victorious, I will repay you double, earning you the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes. The title of a first-rank noble lady. He spoke so earnestly. The old madam wiped her tears beside him, praising how the Pei family had married a virtuous wife. At that time, I believed him, even secretly swelling with the sweetness mixed with responsibility because of his trust. After he left, I realized that looking after these people was no easy task. This general's manor was clearly a bottomless pit. The old madam wanted Tianshan snow clam to nourish her health. A single bowl of soup cost 10 taels of gold. My brother-in-law, Pei Yuan, he frequents gambling dens, and every month I have to send someone to bail him out. No less than 300 taels. As for those clan relatives, weddings, funerals, building houses, buying land, which one of them doesn't reach out to borrow? From me, my dowry silver poured out like water. When calculating accounts late at night, looking at the rapidly shrinking numbers, I was alarmed, but always thought, once he returns, everything will be fine. But what did I wait for? I waited for my father's secret letter, showing him touring a pleasure boat with Shi Qingzhou in the misty rain of Jiangnan. I waited for him to use his military merits to pave the way for Shi Qingzhou's father, while he himself fell off a cliff holding an enemy general, leaving no remains. Such an elaborate scheme. Pei Yuan Shan, if you want to pursue true love, I won't stop you. All you need is a divorce letter. But you want to use an empty coffin and a crumbling general's manor to completely bury the rest of my life and squeeze out my last bit of value. How could I let you have your way? Deep in the night, the white funeral banners rustled mournfully in the wind, dressed in plain mourning clothes. I dismissed the attendants and kept vigil alone before the spirit tablet. The flickering candlelight illuminated my face, calm and unruffled. Husband, I whispered softly to that expensive ebony coffin, since you've already departed some worldly possessions, I suppose you won't be needing any more. I stood up and ran my hand along the smooth side of the coffin. The brilliance isn't just what she took, it is how she turned her husband's fake death into the perfect heist. Who is going to inspect burial goods? Who is going to question a grieving widow honoring her deceased husband? She didn't just take back her dowry, she took their dignity, their status symbols, everything they valued more than her. The coffin that was supposed to bury her future became her golden parachute out. This coffin is made of solid material, extremely heavy. The old madam, for the sake of face, insisted on a grand burial, to be interred in the Pei family ancestral tomb. Perfect. I gently pushed open the coffin lid that wasn't nailed shut, and without hesitation threw out those few old clothes he had worn. I summoned my 2 most loyal dowry guards, and they silently carried in chest after chest of items. 3 days ago, when I received the secret letter, I had already quietly converted my dowry into portable banknotes and rare gemstones. And what was to be placed in the coffin now were the Pei family's prized possessions kept at the bottom of their chests, things hard to liquidate yet too precious for them to part with. There were authentic calligraphy and paintings by famous masters of the previous dynasty from the old madam's room. Heavy gold vessels bestowed by the emperor from the treasury, several clumsy yet priceless ancient jade ornaments from the ancestral hall, and of course rare ancient books seldom seen by outsiders. Naturally, between the book pages and in the hidden compartments of various items, I stuffed all the land deeds, property deeds I could take, along with some precious small antiques. The coffin was quickly filled and packed tight. With the lid closed, everything appeared normal. Thinking about how tomorrow everyone would be crying in the hall over some gold and silver treasures, an uncontrollable smile crept onto my lips. Indeed, what is the point of crying over empty clothes? They should shed more tears for these treasures that are about to leave them. That is what is proper. Security is tight in the capital. It would be quite troublesome for me to secretly transport these things out, but if they go along with the coffin, it'll be much easier, even if someone discovers them. I can just claim their burial goods, completely flawless. Over the next few days, as a widow, I forced myself to maintain my grief while receiving wave after wave of court officials and noble relatives who came to offer condolences. Amidst their sincere or feigned sympathy, they handed over envelopes of condolence money in white sleeves. I accepted every single one, carefully recording them. Pale-faced yet impeccably courteous, I earned praise like, "General Pei was so fortunate in his choice of wife. He can die without regrets." No one knew that very night. I stuffed all that silver into the ebony coffin. The 7th day was the first 7-day memorial, the day of Pei Yuan Shan's funeral procession, and the day I was supposed to fall into complete despair, in the deep of night. I changed into the coarse cloth clothes I had prepared long ago, tucked the banknotes and valuables close to my body, and took one last look at this general's mansion, where I had lived for over a year, draining all my energy and money. The white lanterns in the courtyard swayed back and forth, like an absurd dream. I wrote a tear-jerking farewell letter, walked to the riverside outside the mansion gate, placed an embroidered shoe and a plain handkerchief on the rocks by the shore, then silently disappeared into the spreading mist and darkness of night. The distant sound of the night watch drum faintly echoed. I turned back, glanced in the direction of the general's mansion, and a cold smile crept onto the corner of my lips. This suicide scene is masterful misdirection, but here is what gets me. She didn't just fake her death to escape, she did it to leave them with nothing. She is so far beyond them that she can afford to be generous with pennies while she is walking away with a fortune. Pei Yuan Shan, your dead end is set while my new life has only just begun. This mansion full of blood-sucking parasites waiting to feed, and your sweet dreams far away in Jiangnan. Leave them all for each other to slowly enjoy. At dawn the next day, the general's manor exploded into chaos. The young madam drowned herself to preserve her honor. The martyrdom scene by the river was arranged perfectly. A half-worn embroidered shoe, a soaked plain handkerchief, plus the riverbank mud and water plants deliberately disturbed before dawn. Anyone who saw it would conclude that the young madam of the general's manor, who had been desperately supporting the household with her dowry, had finally followed her deceased husband in death due to overwhelming grief. The news spread like it had wings, reaching every corner of the capital before the sky fully brightened. The court's commendation came quickly, an honor for chaste martyrdom, along with 100 taels of condolence money. By the time I heard the news, I had already dug up the treasures from the grave outside the city, thinking about how those 100 taels would benefit the PA family. I actually felt a bit reluctant, but when I saw the boxes of precious treasures on the carriage, I became generous again. Forget it, forget it. We were husband and wife after all. I am not a vicious person like Pei Yuan Shan. Those 100 taels, let them have it. I hope they can hold out a bit longer. The real chaos in the general's manor began after the funeral. The first to notice something wrong was the old steward of the storeroom. He came trembling to the old madam, holding the ledger that was now more than half empty. Old madam, many of the valuable dowry items that the young madam stored in the treasury, along with several gold pieces bestowed by the emperor, are all missing. The records say they were buried with the deceased. Buried with the deceased. The old madam's vision went dark, and she would have collapsed if the maidservant hadn't caught her. When did she put them in? How come I didn't know? The young madam said those were the general's beloved possessions, and she wanted to place them quietly so you wouldn't be even more heartbroken seeing them. The old madam trembled all over, but now the coffin had already been buried. Digging up the grave and opening the coffin without permission was an unforgivable offense. No one would agree to let her do it. Damn you, Lin Yaoyao. If you wanted to die, then die. But how dare you bury all the family's valuables with yourself? You died so easily, martyring yourself and leaving all your burdens behind. But we still have to live. The second one to break down was the younger brother-in-law, Pei Yuan Shan. The thugs from the gambling house blocked the general's manor gate directly, showing off his newly signed IOU, a full 800 taels. Before, your young madam always settled the bills promptly. Why are you trying to skip out on the debt now? If the Grand General's manor can't even pay this little money, wouldn't that be a laughingstock? Where would the manor still have any cash? The old madam sold off some of her own jewelry and reluctantly mortgaged a small farmstead before finally sending them away. Pei Yuan Shan was beaten by family punishment until his flesh was torn open, lying in his room howling. Brother's gone, sister-in-law's gone, money's gone too. How are we supposed to live? Those dependent clan relatives were the quickest to change with the wind. The steady stream of support suddenly stopped, and after they came crying and making scenes a few times, discovering that even the old madam's own tonics had been cut off, they immediately changed their faces, sneered a few remarks about the family's decline, then one by one found excuses to move away or sought greener pastures elsewhere. The Grand General's manor quickly showed the desolation of people leaving and buildings emptying. But all this, for now, had nothing to do with me. I had already distanced myself from the storm, cleaned up all loose ends, and returned home. Now my identity was no longer Lin Yaoyao, but the twin sister born from the same mother in the Lin family, Lin Zhuozhuo. Because twins were considered inauspicious, I had been fostered at a rural relative's home since childhood, and only now that my sister had passed away did I return home. Zhuozhuo, the day I came back, mother held me and kept crying. Her hands trembled as she touched my face, examining me carefully, tears streaming down. You've gotten thin. You've suffered, my child, you've suffered. Father stood behind mother, his expression complicated. He looked at me, his eyes holding both the relief of regaining what was lost and unspoken reproach. It is good that you are back. Father finally just let out a long sigh. In the main hall, the familiar rosewood furniture, the familiar agarwood incense, everything was the same as before, as if a lifetime had passed. The maid served tea and quietly withdrew. Mother gripped my hand tightly and wouldn't let go, as if I would disappear the moment she loosened her hold. Father pondered for a moment, finally speaking. Back then, if you had listened to advice, Father, I smiled and interrupted him, pulling out a thick booklet from my chest and gently placing it on the table. Take a look at this. Father opened it with confusion, his gaze sweeping over those familiar entries, his eyes gradually widening. This is my dowry list and the things I brought back from the Pei family. The first half of the booklet was the dowry list that had caused a sensation in the capital 3 years ago. The 10 red dowry procession from when I married. The latter half was the gains I had tallied up these past few days. Wang Shiji's Erta, clearing after snowfall, Tang Dynasty copy, with Zhao Mengfu's collector's seal on it. Wu Daozi's authentic Sending the Sun to the Heavenly King, a landscape brush holder, carved from a whole piece of agar wood, its fragrance unfading for 100 years. A pair of imperially bestowed gilt auspicious beast incense burners, plus various rare ancient books, land deeds and property deeds from various places, and cash converted into silver notes. The amount was truly staggering. Father's hands trembled slightly. All of this, you took from the Pei family, all my dowry, plus the things in the Pei family's storeroom that they couldn't bear to sell, yet were their most valuable face-saving treasures. I lifted my teacup, gently blowing away the floating foam. The 10 red dowry went in, and now I've brought it all back. With some interest added. Mother had listened until she was dazed, and only after a long while did she murmur, "But all the grievances you suffered, worth it." I set down the teacup, the porcelain clinking together with a crisp sound. How could it be a loss? I spent 3 years seeing a person for who they truly are, and recognizing a family for what it really is. All those anxious nights spent balancing accounts, the helplessness when facing their demands, the self-moved conviction that while he was fighting at the front lines, I had to hold up the entire household. Looking back now, it all became kindling that tempered my heart. Only occasionally, certain moments still catch me off guard and crash into my mind. Like when Pei Yuan Shan, before departing for war, pinned a flower in my hair under the corridor, his fingertips warm, saying, "Yao Yao, wait for me to return, and I'll plant a whole courtyard of your favorite peach blossoms for you." Like when he wrote in his letters that the border was bitterly cold, and only thoughts of his virtuous wife at home brought him warmth. Every word, so sweet to the heart back then, now when I recall them, each one feels like a stab to the soul. "Yao Yao," Mother called out to me with concern. I snapped back to reality, only to find myself unconsciously rubbing an old scar on my wrist, a burn from when I first took charge of the general's manor and carelessly scalded myself while brewing medicine for the old madam. "I am Zhuo now, Mother." I broke into a smile, and that smile reflected in the clear tea looked strangely radiant, almost unfamiliar. The Lin Yao Yao of the past already jumped into the river to die for her honor, dead in everyone's memories. Father gazed at me for a long while, then slowly nodded. "It is good that you can let go. What are your plans for the future?" I met his gaze and said clearly, "Find a husband who suits my heart, bear a child, and properly pass down the Lin family's legacy." The hall fell silent for a moment. Mother was first astonished, then tears of relief welled up in her eyes. "Good, my Zhuozhou has finally figured it out." Father stroked his beard, his furrowed brows relaxing. "This matter requires careful consideration. You've only recently been widowed, so it is not appropriate to make a fuss. Stay home and rest well for now. As for matters outside, Father will arrange everything. Daughter understands." I stood up and bowed solemnly. However, the candidate must be someone I approve of myself. Naturally, Father rarely showed a smile. "My daughter, Lin Zhongshan's daughter. Even when recruiting a husband, we must recruit the finest young man in all the land." Outside the window, the spring sunlight spilled through the lattice, casting dappled shadows on the floor. I stood in the light and took a deep breath. The incense, the weeping, the scheming of the general's manor, all felt distant now. Pei Yuan Shan must be boating on the lake with his Shi Qingzhou right now, reciting poetry and admiring the moon, right? He probably never dreamed that the widow he had arranged so perfectly, who was supposed to waste away in the general's manor, had long since slipped away like a cicada shedding its shell, taking the last shred of the Pei family's dignity with her, and was now standing in the sunlight, planning a brand new life without him. Amid the curling tea fragrance, I gently traced my fingers over the ink characters on the dowry ledger. Gains and losses, profits and debts. Life's long account has only just begun. Meanwhile, in an exquisite villa somewhere in Jiangnan, Pei Yuan Shan suddenly shivered for no apparent reason. "What is wrong?" Shi Qingzhou asked softly, draping a cloak over his shoulders. Nothing. Pei Yuan Shan wrapped his arm around her shoulder, gazing at the northern sky. "I just suddenly feel that the spring in the south seems a bit cold, too." He inexplicably thought of his wife back in the capital, who always obediently kept her head down and took care of everything for him. A faint, indescribable unease brushed across his heart, like spider silk, but was quickly dispelled by the soft warmth in his arms. He smiled and lowered his head to kiss the top of Shi Qingzhou's hair. "Qingzhou gave up everything from the minister's manor for me. What does my small sacrifice amount to? With Yao Yao there, the general's manor should be fine. A merchant's daughter, with a generous dowry, and no real backing. Wasn't marrying her precisely for this day, Zhuozhua. This is the legitimate second son of the Su family from Jiangzhou, Su Yanqing. Young Master Su passed the provincial examination last year, and is now helping manage the family's salt business. He is a rare, steady man." Father pushed a name card in front of me, his eyes carrying a hint of probing. I took the name card, my fingertips tracing over the elegant small script on it. Su Yanqing, age 22. His legitimate mother passed away early, raised personally by his grandfather. Although the Su family of Jiangzhou isn't top-tier nobility, they're a well-known upright salt merchant family in Jiangnan, with strict family traditions. The Su family doesn't oppose having a son-in-law marry in. I looked up and asked. Father smiled and said, "Old Master Su is a sensible man. His family has many sons and grandsons. Su Yanqing is only the second legitimate son, and his ambitions don't lie in officialdom. He is a perfect match for you." 3 days later, I met Su Yanqing at the bamboo pavilion in the Lin family's villa. He wore a moon-white straight robe. Standing under the corridor watching the koi in the pond, his posture was like a pine tree. Hearing footsteps, he turned around and cupped his hands in greeting. Miss Lin. His brows and eyes were clear, his gaze limpid. There was none of the scrutiny and assessment common to men upon first meeting. Only perfectly measured politeness. Please sit, young Master Su. The maid served this year's newly made by Luochun tea, amidst the wafting tea fragrance. I got straight to the point. Does young Master Su know what marrying into a family means? Su Yanqing smiled slightly and set down his teacup. It means joining the Lin family as a live-in son-in-law, children taking the Lin surname, supporting the parents-in-law, and putting the Lin family first. Is young master willing? My grandfather once said that in this life, all one seeks is nothing more than 2 words: peace of mind. He looked at me, his gaze candid. I aspire to business management and have no interest in court intrigues. The Lin family's trade routes are well established, the perfect place to put my skills to use. As for the continuation of surnames, 100 years from now, who will remember? My fingertips lightly tapped the table. If we marry, I hope to manage the family business together with my husband, rather than being confined to the inner quarters. That is only natural. Since I am marrying in, I should put Miss first in all matters. The first time we met, I wouldn't call it love at first sight, but there was a strange sense of compatibility. He didn't ask about my past, didn't pry into the Lin family's secrets, only discussed how to build our future. Father was right, this man understands things. Half a year later, my wedding with Su Yanqing was held quietly. No fanfare of a grand dowry procession, just a banquet for close family and friends. Under the identity of Lin Zhuozhou, wearing a bright red wedding dress, I walked into the wedding hall for the second time. When Su Yanqing took my hand, his palm was warm and dry. Don't be afraid, he said softly. I was slightly startled, so he had noticed that moment of stiffness in me. On our wedding night, the dragon and phoenix candles burned bright. Su Yanqing lifted my veil, but didn't rush to come closer. Instead, he took out a pair of white jade bracelets and gently slipped them onto my wrists. Left by my grandmother, she said. It was a gift for meeting her grandson's bride. He smiled. My mother passed away early, before grandmother died. What she worried about most was my marriage. In the candlelight, his profile looked especially gentle. Su Yanqing, I suddenly spoke. I was married before. The air went still for a moment. He looked up at me, his gaze calm. I know, you know, Uncle Lin had a long talk with me. He stood up and poured me a cup of nuptial wine. He said, you've suffered, but you've moved on. That is enough. I took the wine cup, our fingertips touching. You are not going to ask for details. If you want to tell me, I'll listen. If you don't, then it is a past that doesn't need to be brought up again. He raised his cup, crossing arms with mine. What I seek is to spend the rest of my life with the person before me, not to dwell on the past. The wine slid down my throat, slightly spicy, with a sweet aftertaste. That night, we lay together fully clothed, talking until dawn broke in the east. From the salt administration in Jiangnan to the fur trade in the northern deserts, from overseas spices to Sichuan brocade, his insights were unique, my experience practical, and the more we talked, the more we hit it off. When the sky began to lighten, Su Yanqing suddenly chuckled softly. Zhuozhou, the way we are, it is like business partners discussing a collaboration. I laughed too. What is wrong with that? Husband and wife are allies after all. Indeed. He turned to face me, looking at me earnestly. Then please guide me well, my wife. 3 months after our marriage, Su Yanqing began taking over part of the Lin family's business. He truly had talent. His optimization of the canal transport routes saved 10% on shipping costs. The dyeing formula for Jiangnan silk, after his improvements, produced more lasting colors. Even in negotiations with foreign merchants overseas, his knowledge of maritime laws gave him the upper hand. Father said to me privately, Zhuozhou, you've found a treasure. I just smiled without a word. During the day, we were partners fighting side by side. At night, back in our room, he would massage my shoulders sore from keeping accounts, and I would make him a bowl of lily and lotus seed soup to calm his nerves. Gradually, we developed the tenderness of an ordinary married couple. A year after our marriage, I became pregnant. Su Yanqing was as happy as a child, yet so nervous, he didn't know what to do with himself. He gathered all kinds of books on prenatal care, personally supervised the meals from the small kitchen, and even picked up woodworking tools to make a cradle for the baby with his own hands. Boy or girl, either is fine. He often pressed his ear against my belly to listen to the baby's movements, as long as it is our child. In late autumn, I gave birth to a pair of dragon phoenix twins. The boy was named Lin Chengji, and the girl was named Lin Yuchu. At the full moon banquet, Su Yanqing held the two children, grinning from ear to ear, in front of all the guests. Father placed the seal of half of the Lin family's estate into Su Yanqing's hands. From now on, this family is entrusted to you too. Su Yanqing solemnly accepted it, but then turned and placed the seal into my jewelry box. Wife, keep it. When I need it, I'll come to you. Mother quietly wiped her tears. Our Zhuozhuo has finally come through the bitterness to sweetness. Yes, bitterness has turned to sweetness. Looking at the children sleeping peacefully in the cradle, looking at my husband drawing my eyebrows under the lamplight, I often felt a sense of unreality. Sometimes when I woke in the middle of the night, I would still dream of that ebony coffin in the general's manor, dream of Pei Yuan Shan's cold gaze. But when I opened my eyes, beside me was Su Yanqing's steady breathing, and outside the wet nurse was softly humming to soothe the children. Everything was in the past now. Meanwhile, in a small town in Jiangnian, 1,000 miles away, Yuan Shan, this bracelet's quality is too poor. Shi Qingzhou pouted and tossed a silver bracelet onto the table. That jade hairpin Madame Li wore yesterday had such excellent translucency. Pei Yuan Shan looked at the meager silver pieces left on the table and rubbed his brow. When he left back then, he thought he had arranged everything flawlessly, faking his death to escape. With Lin Yaoyao's dowry supporting the general's manor, he and Qingzhou would live under assumed names, relying on the savings he'd accumulated over the years to live carefree. But he had underestimated the prices in Jiangnan and overestimated those meager savings. Zi Qingzhou was a minister's daughter. Everything she ate, wore, and used had to be of the finest quality. After the initial novelty wore off, she began complaining that the house was too small, the clothes weren't fashionable enough, and the jewelry wasn't exquisite enough. What was worse? She was pregnant. Is our child going to be born in this backwater? Zi Qingzhou caressed her slightly bulging belly, her eyes reddening. We can't even afford a decent midwife. Pei Yuan Shan clenched his fists. How could he not want to give his beloved the best of everything? But the silver on hand was barely enough to last another half-year. Qingzhou, just bear with it a little longer. He put his arm around her shoulder. I figure out a way. A way. What way? Shi Qingzhou pushed him away, her voice turning shrill. Didn't you say back then that with your virtuous wife managing the general's manor, money wouldn't be a problem? Now we're stuck here, and where is she? She is probably already remarried with your death pension. Pei Yuan Shan's face turned pale. In the past half-year, it wasn't that he hadn't thought about contacting the capital, but the matter of faking his death was too significant. Once exposed, it would be the crime of deceiving the emperor. He didn't dare. But now, we're going back to the capital, he suddenly said. Shi Qingzhou was stunned. Back to the capital. But you are a dead man. We'll go back secretly. A look of determination flashed in Pei Yuan Shan's eyes. The general's manor is my home. Mother and my younger brother are still there. The manor has many businesses, and with Mother's secret support, it is better than sitting here and depleting our resources. But if we're discovered, we'll just be careful, for you and the child. It is worth the risk. Pei Yuan Shan held her hand. Even if we're really discovered, we can say that I fell off a cliff on the battlefield back then and was lucky enough to survive. Zi Qingzhou hesitated for a moment, then finally nodded. 3 days later, a couple visiting relatives quietly headed north. The carriage was shabby, and their luggage was meager. Shi Qingzhou leaned against the carriage wall, stroking her belly, her gaze drifting out the window. She began to miss the fine clothes and delicacies of the minister's manor, and the tea parties and poetry gatherings of the noble ladies in the capital. This pastoral scenery of Jiangnan, after looking at it for so long, was nothing but shabby after all. In the 12th month, the first snow of this winter fell in the capital. Pei Yuan Shan and Shi Qingzhou disguised themselves as ordinary merchants and rented a small courtyard in the south of the city. After settling in, he hurried to the general's manor impatiently. Standing before the familiar vermilion gates, Pei Yuan Shan froze. Most of the paint on the door had peeled off, the stone lion was missing a corner, and the lantern under the eaves had holes in it, swaying in the cold wind. The once imposing plaque reading General Genyuan's residence was actually covered with a layer of dust. He stepped forward and knocked on the door. After a long while, an old servant poked his head out. Who are you looking for? I served under the general and have come specially to pay respects to the old madam. Pei Yuan Shan lowered his voice. The old servant looked him over. The old madam is ill and isn't receiving visitors. Ill. Pei Yuan Shan's heart tightened. Could you please announce me? Just say an old friend from the northwest has come to visit. The old servant hesitated for a moment, but went inside anyway. Half a cup of tea later, Pei Yuan Shan was led to the east courtyard where the old madam resided. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he smelled the strong scent of medicine. The once lush garden was now overgrown and desolate, with unswept snow piled under the corridor. The room was dim, with only a few pieces of cheap charcoal in the brazier, barely clinging to life as they gave off faint warmth. The old madam lay on the bed, covered with a worn cotton quilt, her hair completely white, her face full of sickness. "Mother," Pei Yuan Shan rushed to the bedside, his voice choked with emotion. The old madam's cloudy eyes slowly focused. And when she saw who it was, they suddenly widened. "Yuan Shan, is it really you? It is your son? Your son has returned. You are not dead. You are not dead." The old madam tremblingly reached out to touch his face, tears streaming down. "I knew it, my son is blessed with great fortune." How could he? Mother and son embraced and wept bitterly. After a long while, the old madam finally calmed down, tightly gripping his hand. "My son, why did you only return now? The general's manor is about to collapse." Pei Yuan Shan's heart sank. What happened? Where is Lin Yao Yao? Isn't she? Don't even mention that bitch. The old madam suddenly became agitated. "She took all the valuables in the manor and buried them with you as grave goods. Then she jumped into the river and died, earning herself a good reputation for chastity, leaving us with this empty shell. How are we supposed to live?" Pei Yuan Shan was struck like lightning. "Grave goods. She buried everything." "Yes. That ebony coffin was so heavy it took over a dozen strong men to lift it," the old madam cried. "I wanted to open the coffin and retrieve them, but the clan wouldn't allow it, saying disturbing the dead is a grave sin, and Yuan He is so useless. He has racked up a pile of gambling debts. The farmland and shops have all been mortgaged." Just as she was speaking, a drunken cursing voice came from outside the door. "You old hag who won't die, you still have money to buy medicine. Hand it over. I am gonna win it all back." The curtain was lifted, and Pei Yuan He staggered in. His clothes were disheveled, his eye sockets sunken, reeking of alcohol. Where was there any trace of a noble family's young master? Seeing Pei Yuan Shan, he was first stunned, then his eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost. "Pei Yuan Ha," Pei Yuan Shan shouted sternly. "Look at yourself. What kind of state are you in?" "State?" Pei Yuan He suddenly burst into manic laughter. "Ha ha ha, big brother. You are my big brother who died in battle and brought glory to the whole family." He staggered forward, staring fixedly at Pei Yuan Shan. "You are not dead. You are actually not dead." Then do you know what we went through after you died?" Pei Yuan He's voice was hoarse. "Sister-in-law buried all the family fortune in your coffin, then killed herself. Mother wanted to open the coffin, but the whole clan stopped her. I owed gambling debts and had my leg broken." He suddenly lifted his trouser leg, revealing a hideous scar. "Those clan relatives, they all ran away. The servants were dismissed. Mother fell ill. We couldn't even afford decent ginseng soup." Pei Yuan He's eyes were bloodshot. "And you are actually alive. Where have you been living it up?" Pei Yuan Shan was at a loss for words. "Oh, I understand now. I understand everything now." Pei Yuan He suddenly laughed coldly. "You faked your death, didn't you? You ran off with that Shi family young lady who died of illness to live happily ever after, and left us all here to die." He approached step by step, pulling out a dagger from his chest. "Yuan He, what are you doing?" The old madam screamed in terror. "What am I doing?" Pei Yuan He's eyes were full of hatred. "This good big brother traded our lives for his carefree pleasure. Since he is not dead, shouldn't the pension be returned? Shouldn't the rewards given for his martyrdom be given back? But can we afford to pay it back? We can't." A flash of blade. Pei Yuan Shan hastily dodged, but his arm was still slashed with a cut. "You are insane. I am insane, driven mad by you people." Pei Yuan He was like a madman. "Do you know, the creditors said, if I don't pay up by tomorrow, they'll sell me to the black mines. Since I am dead either way, might as well drag you down with me." The two brothers grappled in the cramped room. The old madam's heart was seized with rage. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Mother. Pei Yuan Shan's attention wavered, and he was pinned down by Pei Yuan He, a dagger pressed against his throat. "Pay up," Pei Yuan He panted heavily. "Otherwise, I'll kill you today. Then report your crime of deceiving the emperor to the authorities. We'll all go down together. I'll pay. Pei Yuan Shan was drenched in cold sweat. "Let me go. I'll go raise the money." "Raise money? Where are you gonna get it?" Pei Yuan He sneered. "Unless you open the coffin and take out the burial goods." Late night, the Pei family ancestral graves. Cold wind howled. Remnants of burnt paper money were swept up, swirling in the air. 4 shadowy figures sneaked up to a grave. It was Pei Yuan Shan's cenotaph. Dig fast. Pei Yuan he urged the 2 thugs he had temporarily hired. Pei Yuan Shan stood to the side, his heart pounding wildly. He kept having an ominous premonition. Shi Qingzhou had wanted to come along too, but was sternly stopped by him. For this kind of thing, the fewer people who knew, the better. The soil was dug up shovel by shovel, revealing the pitch-black coffin. Raise the coffin. The 4 of them looped thick ropes around the coffin and pulled it up with great effort. The moment the coffin emerged from the ground, everyone froze. Too light. It didn't seem like it contained countless gold, silver, and heavy treasures. Open the coffin. Pei Yuan Shan's voice trembled slightly. The coffin lid was pried open. The torch was brought closer. This scene, this is where karma becomes tangible. He wanted to bury her alive in that mansion. Instead, she buried his legacy in an empty coffin and walked away with everything that mattered. The coffin was completely empty. No gold or silver, no jade artifacts, no calligraphy or paintings, not even his old clothes and ceremonial items. A deathly silence. Where are the things? Pei Yuan he muttered, then suddenly grabbed Pei Yuan Shan by the collar. Where are the burial goods? Did you have someone dig them out ahead of time? Pei Yuan Shan stood frozen on the spot, his mind completely blank. Suddenly, he remembered his mother's words. That ebony coffin was so heavy that it took over a dozen strong men to carry it. If it was just an empty coffin, how could it have been so heavy? Unless it really was filled with heavy objects at the time, but someone took them away after the burial. No, that is not right. The ancestral tomb had guards. Grave robbers wouldn't dare be so brazen. Besides, there were no signs of the tomb being robbed. There is only one possibility. It is Lin Yaoyao. It was Lin Yaoyao who took the things away in advance. Everything was her scheme. She deceived everyone. Pei Yuan Shan voiced his thoughts out loud. Bam! But soon he took a hard punch. Pei Yuan Shan, you are clearly the one scheming, yet you dare push everything onto sister-in-law's head. During those years you were out fighting wars. It was sister-in-law who managed everything at home. Whatever I wanted, sister-in-law would give. As soon as he finished speaking, Pei Yuan Shan took several more punches. Looking at Pei Yuan he with veins bulging and clawing wildly, he was furious. With a flip, he pinned Pei Yuan he beneath him. Wake up. All of this is that woman's scheme. She used an empty coffin and a martyrdom to completely cut off our Pei family's last hope. You are the one who needs to wake up, you despicable scoundrel. Sister-in-law was a merchant's daughter with a fortune. She didn't care about these things at all. But you, for the sake of a woman, disregarded our whole family's lives. And now, you still dare to push all of this onto someone who is already dead. Pei Yuan he shouted his rebuke, grappling with Pei Yuan Shan. The noise was so loud that it quickly drew the graveyard guards. Pei Yuan Shan fled in a panic. Pei Yuan he and the 2 thugs couldn't escape in time and were caught on the spot. Lin residence, lanterns and decorations were hung everywhere, preparing to celebrate the young master and young Mrs.'s first birthday banquet. Su Yanqing and I stood side by side under the corridor, watching the servants hang up colorful lanterns. I heard that the second young master of the general's manor has gotten into new debt again. Su Yanqing suddenly said in a low voice. I fiddled with the jade bracelet on my wrist and smiled slightly. Is that so? How unfortunate. There is also a rumor that the Pei family's ancestral graves were robbed not long ago, and the grave robber was none other than the Pei family's second young master. When he was caught, he kept insisting that Pei Yuan Shan wasn't dead, and that Pei Yuan Shan had stolen the burial goods from the coffin beforehand. I looked up at him. Since when did young master Su start caring about such idle gossip? He held my hand, his gaze gentle. I just feel that karma comes around. I leaned against his shoulder, gazing toward the south. Pei Yuan Shan, it is time to wake up from your Jiangnian dream, isn't it? Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad. It is getting everything, faking your death, and watching them dig up an empty grave. See you in the comments, queens.